Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. This is Dan coming to you from my little wood shop in my backyard. Speaking of that, DTMWW.net's my little woodworking handyman business that I run out of the Louisville metropolitan area. So if reach out to me if you need anything that might fit those skill sets. Is this the first time you're tuned into this? This Spiritual Underground Podcast is primarily a 12-step based podcast. We talk about other avenues of recovery also, but primarily our guests have come to a recovered state through the 12 steps. Getting that out of the way, there's also another program going on in Louisville called 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. A book by James Christopher Cone of the same name could be found on Amazon. James Christopher Cone, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. It's the steps for anybody. You do not have to fit the traditional 12-step models in order to use these tools to see improvement in your life. So check that out. And also want to give credit to Darren Frank for the music around this podcast. The intro and outro, he is continuing to recover his physical health in a rehabilitation center here locally. So keep him in your prayers. So I've had a little string, and we just, I think it's a measure to some extent of our home group and the fact that we are carrying this message in the way it was meant to be carried. And the metric that sticks out to me is how many 1-year tokens we give away a year. Every year it's more. If I counted the other day, I think we're on track. If everybody makes it this year, it'll be 16 1-year tokens that will be presented at our home group. And my guest today is one of those. So it was like 12 a couple years ago, and then it was like 13, and now we're looking at 16. I like to get guys on then, and I actually toyed around with maybe getting somebody in that was like brand new before they were, and interview them, and then interview them after their 1-year anniversary to hear that difference and patch that podcast together. And the differences in what somebody because it really does, when we work this process, it changes our very being, our way of being, in a drastic manner. And I think you would hear that through their voice on the podcast. I can't really remember how I met Dillon. I believe it was at the Spiritual Underground. You come bopping in there one day, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to tell your story at all, and I'm a product of that too. We struggle in the beginning to get our footing, and then one day something clicks. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to have the recipe of how that works and how that click happens. But it might happen. I think that's the root of keep coming back, is that keep coming back, go to lots of meetings, check it out, and don't quit before the miracle happens, is what we say. And eventually, if you keep on trying, you'll land in your spot. Mm-hmm. and get some traction and be able to harness this power that the book talks about we're lacking when we get here. So Dillon, how you doing today, man?
I'm good.
You excited?
Yes.
Nervous?
Yes.
Good. I kind of like the nervousness part of it, because that means you're wondering what you're going to say, and that means it'll probably come out real. After a few minutes, these microphones disappear. And when we just it just becomes a conversation, and I actually can usually see that happen when a guy forgets that the microphone's there. What's your sobriety date?
1/11/19.
1/11/19. So yeah, you were one of the January. You celebrated the same month I did, and so that is super cool. And man, I just love watching guys get that first year. There's something magical about that. And the transformation in your entire demeanor over that year. I have an extra little flair personally in that, is that you are one of my sponsees, and that's this lineage thing of where we carry this message and watch it actually spread. And once again, I'll say, I know that's not me. That's the power of this work and doing it. and the help of a higher power coming in and intervening. I had buddy Brian in here, and I like the way he said it. He said it was a third party intervention. I like that. Did you grow up around here?
No, I'm originally from Owensboro, Kentucky. I moved up here when I was 11.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
In Owensboro?
Period.
Okay. So, yeah. I was born in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I lived with my grandparents. And a lady, growing up, a lady kept coming visiting the house where my grandparents lived. And I had a good feeling about this lady, and I didn't know who she was. And then when I turned about 10 or 11, my grandma told me it was my mom. She came up to Louisville to get recovery. And so that's when I said, I'm moving to Louisville with my mom.
So she was actually visiting, and you didn't know that was actually
I didn't know who she was. I just had this, she always brought candy, and I always wanted to hang out with her.
Yeah. Do you think that was kept from you, or was that just
it was
like to protect you? Maybe
my
protect
grandma
her?
was trying to protect me in a way, I guess. Yeah. She didn't want any of the kids to leave. And Caleb moved. My older brother moved first, and then I moved second. Started my journey in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, at about 11 years old, huh?
Yep.
It sounds like your grandma provided a pretty good environment for you when you were little.
Very strict.
Strict. I won't put good or bad on that, but strict.
Very country-driven, strict.
Yeah. Was it actually in Owensboro, or was it the outskirts?
No, in Owensboro.
Okay. You know, like if I tell somebody, if somebody asks me where I'm from, usually if I'm very far from here, I have to say Louisville, Kentucky, because nobody knows where New Albany, Indiana is. So sometimes we use the closest city name as a regional marker rather than truly where you were from.
All of my relatives, some are civilized country, and then I have some that are just rednecks. Straight up rednecks.
Yeah.
But I love them all.
Yeah, there's takes all kinds, man. And
actually, that's where at my aunt's house is where I had my first drink at 8 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So I was hanging out with my older cousin Kelly. He's a year older than my older brother. And I was about 8, and we were at my aunt's house, and he goes in the garage, and I go with him. And he opens up a beer, some Budweiser or something. It was some cheap beer.
Well, Budweiser's
maybe
not
Busch Light, maybe Busch Light, something gross. He's like, "You want one?" And I was like, "Sure." And I chugged it, and I was like, "That was gross," but I instantly loved the way I felt.
Yeah.
I was like, "Give me another one," and he said no.
And
then kicked me out of the garage. And then I got home. My grandma was like, "Why are you acting so funny, Dillon?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then I guess she smelled it on my breath. And
oh, really?
I went into her and my grandpa's room, and he was like, "Do you want the hand or the belt?" I said, "Hand." He's got big old monster hands. But that was my first drink.
So what I heard there was like a phenomenon, a craving thing going on right out of the gates, where even after the first beer, I wanted another one.
I wanted another
one,
even
though it tastes like crap.
Even though it was really bad, and he kept saying, "Chug it." Before I opened it, he was like, "You're gonna have to chug it or shotgun it." And I was like, "What's shotgun in it?" And so he showed me what shotgun. I was like, "I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna chug it." And so that was my first drink.
Amazing. 8 years old. So where'd it go from there?
So I moved up here to Louisville and lived with my mom over in the Highlands, and with my brother and her. And
she's recovered at this point?
Yeah. She'll have 15 years this year.
Cool.
And is now a doctor. But so we were living in the Highlands, and I went to Highland Middle School and instantly started hanging out with kids who smoked weed and drank. And I made it past middle school, but that's all I did was smoke, drink, get in fights, like just awful shit. And so from there, she married Keith, who will have 18 years this year of sobriety.
Yeah, we got some extra energy in the studio, so
And we moved out to Brownsboro on 22. And I was just acting a fool. Wouldn't go to high school. To be honest, if I'm going to be completely honest, my mom's done most of my high school online.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's me getting brutally honest. And I have I'm 22 and I have 2 credits left, and I'm going to do them. But
to graduate, to get GED to graduate high school or
high school diploma.
Yeah,
it's called Penn Foster. And so we moved out there, and I started hanging around kids out there, and I lived at their house, Mom and Keith's house. I lived 2 houses away from my ex-girlfriend. And so I met my Brownsboro Road best friend. And then we started doing ridiculous shit.
Like what?
Snorting cocaine, drinking anything we can get our hands on, rapping, doing freestyles like that. Just hanging out at his dad's house.
My sponsor would talk about that being he would always correct me when I said my things were stupid or ridiculous or anything like that, and that's ultimately with this whole powerless issue. You know, you think you're choosing to do that,
right? But
the disease has got a handle on you, and it's like got the joystick with a label on it called Dillon.
Yeah, and
it is telling you what you're going to do.
My biggest thing out there with him was whiskey, Xanax, cocaine, and some other stuff. And
that's a great combination for a teenager. Is that what? We're back into teen years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably... Let me rewind a little bit.
Absolutely.
I was about 17, and I stole my ex-girlfriend's stepbrother's gun out of their house and put it under my bed in my room. And my brother told my mom, and so they called the cops. If I'm telling the story correct, that's what happened. They call the cops. I go to jail, and then I get sent. Russ Reed.
Don't worry about it.
From the Beacon House came and visited me when I was in CCC in jail and said they had a bed open and that I could go to the Beacon House. And so I went there. They kept paying my rent. I was too stubborn to get a job. And so I was there for about 6.5 months. And
so he come in to try and intervene in this lifestyle. We have these opportunities in our lives. I had plenty of them, these stoppages where something would happen that was critical in my path, that had an opportunity to stop me. But most of them did not.
I wasn't ready. And so I did soak up a lot of friendships and a lot of knowledge when I was there. And I went off the deep end because I lost my daughter when I was there to an abortion.
So you had gotten this... Is this the same ex-girlfriend? No. So you had gotten a girl pregnant and she chose to have an abortion?
Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I got off HIP, I go back to Owensboro and live with my grandma for the summer. And me and Caleb had a best friend down there, and he was bad. Like, on anything he could get, any downers he could do, he was doing. And so I hung out with him when I was down there, and then came to the conclusion that I was bored. I didn't want to be in Owensboro no more. So I moved back to Louisville. And fast forward a little bit. So
we're in no hurry, so you can tell as detailed as you feel led to do, brother.
So I put Mom and Keith through hell. I really did. I mean, because to me, my dad took his life with the 44 and I was 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
And then another guy came along and he was a POS and Mom got away from him. And then she got with Keith and I was just like, he's just the next guy. But he's actually he's a great guy. He's a great stepdad. Really is. And I love him. And so I was living with them. And then I say, screw this. I'm going to go live with my buddy over on Westport. And so I'm living with him for a while. Just drinking as much as I can. As much. I'm doing whatever kind of drugs I can get my hand on. But I was never an IV shooter. I never wanted to put a vein in my arm unless it was a tattoo deal.
Yeah. And
so they move out of their house. Tyler moves out of his house. They move out to I want to say Dixie, somewhere out far. And so me and this kid, I'm not gonna say his name, but me and this old acquaintance who was rich. I didn't know it, but he was rich.
I was gonna ask you who's funding all this.
And so we go to these girls' house downtown, and we're basically living with them. And we're at this. It was January 15th of 2017. We were wasted, and really high. And I was on the phone with a girl I used to mess with, who's a really good friend of mine now. She wanted to come over and hang out and buy some weed and chill. And he kept saying some stuff, and all I said was "fuck you" and laughed. And he came up and shot me. And that night was when I saw part of my higher power.
Yeah. So just to rewind that a little bit, we're partying. Nighttime?
Huh?
Is nighttime? The night? Late night?
I want to say 9 or 10.
Really? So it's early in the evening for most people.
Right.
And the only thing you're doing is talking on the phone trying to get this girl to come over.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all you wanted to do with her was smoke some weed. But
let me fuck her, let me fuck her, let me fuck her. And I give him the middle finger and say, fuck you. And all I remember is him having my stolen 9 pistol.
Yours?
Yes.
Your gun?
Yes. And shooting me. That's all I remember.
So this is another stolen gun you'd have a hold of.
Yeah. I was not the best guy to be around back in the day.
And he had somehow or another got it.
Well, he was on there was a dresser on close to the front door. He was sitting on rapping because we had rap music going. And he's wasted. And then it happens.
So he gets it and comes up behind you?
No. Comes up to my face.
He comes up and shoots you in your face?
In my cheek, and it goes out the side of my left side of my head.
Did you see him coming?
I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
That was so long ago.
Yeah.
And I saw my higher power that night, part of it. And then I don't remember coming back in the hospital immediately. I remember being there, actually being there probably a month and a half in.
Do you remember the gunshot?
Yes.
You actually remember that?
I do.
Did you stay conscious?
No, I was deceased.
You fell out.
I mean, he shot me in the head.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there. And so.
Well, there's some pretty amazing stories where people get shot and they don't. So I just am curious about those details. So the minute the gun went off, you were out.
Yes. And so.
And then woke up in the hospital at some point later?
Yeah. And a lot of my family from Owensboro came. My sister came. Grandma, grandpa, brother. My mom called my brother. He was living in Denver at the time with his buddy. And she says, your brother's been shot in the head. And all she told me later on is what he did is he dropped the phone, curled up in a ball, and started crying. And me and my brother have a love-hate relationship. Like, we'll be good for a minute, and then we'll be at each other's throats. Yeah. But not seriously. And so...
Is he one of us also?
Huh?
Is he one of us also?
Very much so.
Still? I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus either.
He has a job, you know. He's getting his life together, but I don't think this program wouldn't be too bad for him. I mean, if he wanted to be sober, I think I could help him.
Yeah.
Like meet some people.
It's available to everyone.
It is
just like us, you know. I mean, what day it takes and what event and what. Sometimes people just decide to do that, but most of us have to have some kind of catastrophe happen in our lives, some kind of what we say enough pain. But we'll move on from that. So he's curled up in a ball in Denver.
My mom gets him a plane ticket, and he comes home and comes to the hospital, and he's there for me. The amazing part of this program is, though, my mom became a nurse quite a few years ago. She told me that she didn't really know what it was for. But when I got hurt, she said she was in the hospital telling the doctors and nurses what to do. She's like, you're not going to trach and peg my son. His injury's from his face up, not neck down. And that was at 19, and I'm 22. And so I get better. I'm hospitalized from January 15th to March 23rd of 2017. And so I come home, and I couldn't, like, I was like a newborn baby. Keith had to shower me.
Wow.
And clothe me. And help if like, and I have seizures and pass out. And from the day I got out of the hospital, when I came home, like when I was getting better, we pray out of the daily word. We pray every day and drink coffee. And so I accumulated a year. My sobriety date was January 15th by circumstance. And then I went and I had a drink. And then it was September 3rd, and my birthday's September 9th. And I stayed sober up until January 10th of 2019. And I had just got my disability money, and my brother comes home from work with Keith. He's like, go up, and keep in mind, I just turned 21 the last year. So I hadn't had a legal drink. And so he's like, go up to Liquor Road, get me a half pint. I said, you going to pay me back? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I go up there, and the guy's like, can I get a half pint of some Benchmark? And then I said, wait, make that too. And he was like, let me see your ID. You know, I get the bottles. And so I'm walking, and I open it, and I chug half of it in the middle of the street going back to the house. And I look down at it, and I get so pissed off, I yell, motherfucker. And I throw it as far as I can. I go in the house, I throw Kelb's at his down in the basement, go up to Mom and Keith's room. I'm like, hey, I just relapsed. Keith's like, get in the car, we're going to a meeting. That's when we went to Spiritual Underground. And I surrendered. Like, I was like, I can't live like this. So let me tell you a little something, Dan. Because of my injury, even if I wasn't an alcoholic, I still can't drink. Like, one beer could kill me. Like that. So it's God's will that I'm in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And so I get to Spiritual Underground, and I see all you guys happy, joyous, and free. I'm like, I want that shit. I want that juice they're talking about. And so that's when I meet Chase. And he's like, call me for 2 weeks. And I did. And he became a sponsor. And we went through the steps again. And I had done a couple fifth steps prior to his.
Oh, had you?
Yeah. And a couple step studies. But the fifth step I did with Chase was the most brutally honest one. I mean, I told him things that I would swear that I was going to take to my grave.
Right.
Like some deep shit.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because it started raining. We were out on his back porch, and he giggles. I'm like, what's funny? He's like, nothing. I was like, come on, you can tell me. He was like, the rain washes all the pain away. I'm like, that's right. It does. So we get the fifth step done. We finished the steps, and then I just celebrated a year. And the amazing thing about this program is I have guys that depend on me today for help. I just dropped, from the beginning of this year, I just dropped my fifth step with a couple different guys from the transitional living house on LaGrange Road. Like, they have my number saved there. Like, they're like, oh, you need a sponsor? Call him.
So you're sponsoring people?
Yeah.
You're here in fifth steps is what?
Yes.
You said 7?
7.
Wow.
And I just got another sponsee that I had before. And he was like, I relapsed. You be my sponsor again? I was like, you want to be sober? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right. Get the work done. I'll come. Call me every day. And the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is one of my best friends. You know, to me, like, I was raised Catholic,
Yeah.
so I do believe in Jesus. But I also believe in the dove, which represents the Holy Spirit, and then what I saw when I died. And I put those all together, and I just call it a God of my own understanding, so a higher power.
Yeah.
And so the miracles that this, like, I have such, my best day or my worst day sober kicks my best day drunk or high's ass. Like, because I am clearer minded today. Like, I can think things through. I can play that tape all the way through.
Right.
And I don't have as many worries or stressors on my mind today. And it's beautiful. I don't have the cops coming and looking for me anymore. I had a little upset last week, but I got it taken care of, and I'm going to move on. Take my beating like a man and keep on moving. This program is just beautiful. That's really all I got.
So when you said this higher power experience when you were shot, you want to elaborate on what that was exactly?
Okay. So I had only seen one picture of my biological father. I don't ever remember him. I don't remember him. I was only 8 months old.
Yeah. Yeah, no way you'd remember that.
I was a baby. He shot himself in the head to avoid prison and the Mexican mafia. So, when I died, I saw a lot of red flames. And then it went completely dark. Like, dark. And I saw light from all four corners. And a little light in the middle. And a being appeared. I can't really explain the being. It was just beautiful. And it brought me in face to face. And its face looked like my mom, Joy. It didn't look like my real dad, Randall. And while it looked like him, it grabbed me by the shoulders, brought me in close, looked me dead in my eyes, smiled as big as he could, and pushed him away as far as he could. And I came back in the hospital. That's what I remember.
That's amazing.
And every night for the last 3 years, I have the same dream of what happened. Every night.
That reoccurs.
Mm-hmm. Every day. And like, it's crazy, Dan. It's crazy. But I think of it like this. People say I'm weird for this. I was at the right place at the right time. Because where I was headed, I was either headed back to the deathbed or I was headed straight to the penitentiary. That's exactly where I was headed. I had no future going for me at all. Because I thought being a dope boy was going to save my life when it actually ended it. And so I can't express how much this program has saved my life. With a God of my own understanding, these 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the juice,
Yeah.
and the Big Book, and the fellowship. Because when I came into the program, I was hanging out with old timers.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I like to be around, is old timers, because they know what's going on.
A lot of wisdom.
Yeah. But
So you were really, I heard of, just in a little bit what you said, you'd had at least talked about, you needed a gun around you, it sounded like, or felt that you needed one.
or at least I thought I did.
Yeah. That's like that thing about 100 forms of fear. I felt that way a long time too. And one of the miracles of this is I no longer feel that need to have that artificial protection anymore. Because I truly do feel like, as the book talks about, being that I walk today safe and protected, and I can go anywhere, especially when I'm on these kind of missions.
Right.
That I will be protected. I do not have anything to worry about. And if something would happen, I would assume that would be under that same guys too, that would be that's beyond my control. That's more powerlessness and things like that. One of the other things about this whole deal on this free will concept and being wide open is that most of the time when people disturb me, just to use a pretty basic term. Usually what's happening is they're using their free will freely.
Yeah.
And I want to look at them as jerks or assholes or whatever, but, we do have this gift of free will. We can do what we want to with it. But so there's one of the things I was hearing is this a life ate up with fear, right?
I've been a fear-based kind of guy since I was a baby. Like in school, I never wanted to hang out with the preppy kids. I wanted to see what those kids in the corner over there were doing, just chilling. Like, oh, they're skipping school. Let's go get high.
Yeah. And there's that hard edge that those guys have, that I wanted to be, prove my toughness.
Right.
That's by being able to hang out with them, rather than, because the other ones look like sissies to me. Right? And I did not want to be looked at as a sissy.
No, I didn't.
Period.
I did not.
And we'll go to a lot of lengths of doing things that to prove that I was not. Dad walked up to the window. He looked in here and saw it and just waved and turned around and walked back away. Sometimes I have a little sign over it that says recording in process. I always tell him when I'm recording, and I tip him off to that I am. But I hope he didn't need anything too important. I'm sure he didn't. We get along real good. It's just interesting. Not too often does he actually bop out here. I saw him kind of catch that. Oop, whoops, bye. So that life of fear, that life of I can say today that there was still always through that, there was still a little thing in my gut that told me that I probably shouldn't have been going down the path I was going on. I overrode that and carried on.
Right.
One of the reasons is because I was trying to fit in with these tougher dudes. You can move that thing will bend that to the left. Just grab the stand like here. And you can move it anywhere you want to move it. That's the best place to grab it if you want to readjust it. And it's pretty articulating. It'll go about anywhere. Yeah. Thought about hanging them from the ceiling, but I don't. Then they end up in my line of sight.
Right.
And I like to look over them rather than under them. Is that life of trying to fit in with these other people too? And if I would have found like a way to fit in with them preppier kids, because I had a life where I was a little bit playing both sides against the middle. Yeah. I still played sports.
Yep.
And hung out on that side at times when that suited me. This whole chameleon thing we do, right? I put on the suit that fit me. I'd have on the popped up Izod collar when I was hanging around with the ball team and that side of things. I'd then throw on the blue jean jacket, and all that, and stick the pack of cigarettes in my pocket and all that when I'm over here on this side.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I really, there's times when I would go places when both elements would be at places like school dances and different kind of school activities, football games, different things like that. Where, because I didn't play football in high school, I played basketball, so I'd be at those and trying to figure out like who I needed to be tonight,
right?
In order to be part of, because that was a whole big theme of my end of things too. Is just trying to find a way to be a part of. You talked about that guy offering you that beer the first time when you were 8, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to venture to say that you accepted that beer almost as a handshake in friendship more than wanting alcohol.
Well,
because this says, hey, will you want to be with me? And of course, my answer is yes, right?
He was he's my older cousin. I was like, I want to be cool. I want to actually. I mean, you're my family, so I want you to actually like me. So yeah. I'll take the beer.
Yeah. Was drinking normalized in your family system when you were younger? Did you see a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go.
You said it was strict.
To family events. Well, my grandma was strict growing up, but my other family's not too like that. I mean, they're civilized country folk, but there is a lot of drinking when my older cousin Kelly comes, and my Uncle Duck, and a couple others. Like, I mean, they have 2 fridges out in their garage now, and one's filled with beer, one's filled with like waters and stuff like that. I mean, they get pretty drunk at family events.
Yeah, drinking was normalized in my family system, but I didn't really see people getting drunk very often. There would be the occasion when I can recall some things, and actually most of the time when that would happen, it'd be like maybe a party kind of, not, and these weren't parties in the way that me and you partied.
Right.
These were like family barbecue parties, where you had hamburgers and hot dogs, and there's a bunch of kids running around and all that. And I do have some memories of some people on the periphery going past the limit, and will get drunker than what, and I didn't understand that as a little guy. I did at some level, see that, but there was always beer at those kind of functions. Always. There wasn't too much hard liquor going on that I witnessed, but some people did. Some people had a cocktail and that kind of thing. But I never saw people drinking to excess on a regular basis around me. But certainly the consumption of alcohol was normalized.
Right.
I had no, it looked like what adults did.
Yeah, when I was at, I'd see what they were drinking, and then I'd see how they act, and I'd be like, there's something going on in that drink. It was like some magical powder or something.
And
I took that beer and chugged it, and it was disgusting.
Yeah, I still say, people don't drink.
I just instantly,
because they like the taste of it.
This is heaven. I started feeling good.
That warm feeling pours over you, and
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Magic. Yeah,
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I started sneaking beers out of those same kind of refrigerators you're talking about, But what I recall as being young is I was doing that to like be tough and look like an adult, look like a grown up, So I would grab a beer out of the refrigerator, and like I grew up in a family that had a lot of male cousins,
right,
that were around the same age as me, and most of them did not partake in that. Matter of fact, I can remember some warnings and stuff like, nah, we're not supposed to do that. And but that probably egged me on even more, because I was like,
well, if y'all ain't gonna do it, I'm definitely gonna do it.
Budding alcoholic, you tell me what not to do is the fastest way to get me to do it, right?
Right.
It's interesting how those dynamics play in, and looking back at that.
Living
little
in the
journey.
Highlands, I would always, I lived right there by Tyler Park, next to Shrek's Liquor. I go in there and steal a bottle every couple days.
Steal it.
Oh yeah. My poison was a fifth of Maker's Mark. Didn't have to be cold. Didn't like it really warm, but I'd drink it warm. Room temperature. I could chug a whole. Back in the day, I could have chugged a whole fifth of Maker's Mark and still just been tipsy. My alcohol tolerance level was high. Because if I had alcohol or even beer, whatever, I needed some drugs. And if I had the drugs, I was like, I need a drink. So I have a coexisting problem, because for me, being an addict is a form of my alcoholism. So,
yeah, I like a combination. One thing about alcohol to me, and it's a depressant, right? And I can only do that so long on its own. I like drugs that would pop me up and keep me drinking. I didn't like the benzos and other things like that would bring you down. That wasn't my deal, and I like things that would bring me up and allow me to continue the party.
One thing that really messed me up is when I came home and I was able to because me and Keith go on walks all the time with my dog Sasha. Like, we've been doing it since 2017. I got her for a Christmas present. And I came home from the hospital, and I was walking to my old buddy Zach's house. And I guess my friend Sarah drives by, and she calls me. She's like, hey, you need to walk home now. I was like, why? What's going on? Like, I was still pretty sick. She's like, Zach's dead. Don't go to his house. Go home. And so I go home, and eventually I get in touch with his dad, who despised me. And then we went on a couple walks and found out that when I got shot, he was a couple beds away from me in the ICU, overdosing on heroin.
Mm. Is that what killed him?
Opiates.
Yeah.
And so,
what happened to the fellow that shot you?
He's out running amok.
Really?
And I want nothing to do with him, because let me just put it this way, Dan. If I see him, I'm going to need someone really strong and spiritually fit to hold me back from taking his head off. But I also try to let go and let God and trust the process. Because I want to be spiritually fit enough to where if I see him, I can just keep walking and not worry about him. But
well, I can certainly understand the resentment at that level.
I've done many fist steps, and he's been on the top, one of the top ones on there, and he was on my last one.
So he didn't receive any consequences from this?
No. But I'm going to eventually do a fist step to where he's not going to be on it. I've forgiven him in a way, but I will never forget. Ever.
Well, it's a hard thing to forget, and that's
I mean,
and I just feel led a little bit, until that level of freedom can come for you. That's gonna, that'll be a
this last January 15th,
a tough one to get by. But once you are able to release that one, I believe you'll feel a level of lightness in your heart that you are going to be blown away by.
I got a couple people on my fist step that have been on there since the first one. But
so when you say this, just for clarity, you're not just doing fist steps, right? You're working through the steps, or are you just running around doing fist steps?
No, I go through them.
Okay. I just want to clarify that because you're pinging on that pretty hard, and I want to make sure that from the standpoint of the listeners that we're clear on what's going on.
Yeah, I do 1 through 12. If I'm planning on doing this the steps once a year, 1 through 12.
Yeah.
Just to get me fresh on them. But
so you're inventorying this, and this guy's on your inventory every time. These particular people.
Yeah.
And then and it just is not going away.
No. It's.
I mean, we say that God's not going to necessarily
selfish and self-centered and harboring the resentment on purpose. I guess you could say that. I don't really know if that's the truth.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that either.
I have people on my fist step that I could. My next one I do, they won't be on there. And what I've noticed about my fist step is my list keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
That would be the hope.
Like my first one, I probably had 25 names. Second, 20. And this last one I did, I probably had 13 names on there. Not a lot, like maybe a page and a half. So my list keeps getting shorter, and I love that. That means I'm spiritually growing.
Yep. And
today, if something pisses me off, Dan, I actually pause when agitated.
Right.
I thought you guys were just saying that to be cool. Everyone in the program is like, oh, pause when agitated and pray. I'm like, oh, fuck off. But it's true. I actually do it, and I pause when agitated, and I say this serenity prayer. That was my first tattoo, is the serenity prayer. I've been saying it since I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I got out of boot camp when I was 16, I think, 17, 18, something like that. I was on Fort Knox for 5.5 months. I was a cadet. It was either that or go to prison. And so I did that. And my present my mom got me was my first tattoo. And it was a serenity prayer. It's my first one. And tattooing, I love tattoos. My real dad was a tattoo artist.
Oh, really?
And you could say like music and tattoos are my meditation. Like anytime I'm stressed, all I gotta do is look at my hands. That's all I gotta do. And then I have I'm branded with Unity, Service, Recovery, and G for God. And I just can't express enough how much this program has helped me. Like I'm not worried about even an hour from now. Or 2 weeks, a day. I'm worried about. I'm trying to stay in the present, because if I have a foot in yesterday and a foot in tomorrow, I'm wasting a day.
Yep, absolutely. And that's not limited to us, man. Day at a time is a real deal. And if you can stay in it.
I was 15. I used to go to Alateen.
Did you?
Yeah, and I was at No Name. I was about 15. I was high as a kite. And then there was this old timer. His name was Pigeon.
I recall that name. I don't know him.
And he was well known. He's upstairs now.
Yeah.
And I was smoking a cigarette at 15. My mom was there for the meeting. he comes up to me, says, "You're high as a kite." He said, "What's your name?" I say, "Dillon, what's up?" He's like, "I'm Pigeon." He's like, and then he's about to walk in. He's like, "Let me tell you something, Dillon. No matter who loves you, leaves you, or dies, you don't have to get drunk or high tonight, even if you want to." And I still did for many years, but for some reason, that has always stuck in my head. Always.
Yeah. Well, seeds get planted.
Yeah, so going to Alateen, messing with girls in Alateen, I still that's where the seed really got planted. And then I went to the Beacon House. I was faking it till I made it, but I still was there for 6.5 months and was helping guys out. They were helping me out, building friendships, going places. And now I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous for me because I want to be. And that's really all I got.
Well, thank you for coming in here today. This is the first time you've actually spoke. You haven't spoken at a podium yet, is that right?
No, sir.
You will be, I believe. Chase, the first time he told his story was on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the first time he spoke.
So,
kind of get a little practice run, under a controlled environment, so to speak. You can no audience to have to look out to, and
right.
I'd like to think I'm a comfortable person to talk to. I think I am. So I hope I put you at ease, and from that standpoint, it is an amazing story. Somebody mentioned the other day, and I don't. This got away from me that there was another guy that's been shot in our group. Do you know that?
I did not.
A friend had said to me the other day that he's talking to somebody, and he said he realized that we were sitting in a room with two people who had been shot in the head.
He's been shot in the head too?
That's what this guy told me.
Huh. I'll have to find that out.
Yeah, me too. I'm interested in hearing that because I like, it's an unbelievable survival story for both.
Right. I want to meet him.
Yeah, I would think that's why I kind of mentioned it. It's like I want to find out who this other guy is. We say we have a common problem,
right?
That would be a.
Let's hang out.
Yeah.
Because if he's been shot in the head, he also has a TBI. And
what is that?
Traumatic brain injury.
And then that plays a role in who you are today, right? There's some things going on that are lingering from that. You said something about the seizures.
So it's really hard to explain what goes on in my head. Like, look, I move my head this way, everything shifts to the left. I can feel it shifting.
Really?
Now everything's over here. I got this part gone, half a prosthetic scalp, 2 heart stents in my face, and a titanium plate. And I'm half blind. And I'm comfortable. Like, I don't care what people think of what I look at this point. I really don't.
Yeah.
It's like, boo.
Does it cause some processing issues and things like that as far as like manipulating through the day and processing things?
From where I was, Keith can vouch for this. From where I was when I came home to where I am now, a lot of progress, a lot of growth.
Yeah, the body
I
will
can
heal.
wake up today and take a shower by myself. I can walk to the gas station by myself. If I get up too fast, I need to sit back down because I will hit the deck.
Yeah.
And if I get really anxious or really angry or upset, the room starts to do this. Starts to spin, and I get real lightheaded. Like it comes all the way up.
Yeah.
And I hit the deck. I take medicine. I'm on I have to be on a 325 aspirin for the rest of my life. Blood thinner.
Yeah. The seizures, are this something that happens often, or are they?
No, it depends. It really depends on like sometimes it can just happen out of nowhere. Like I could have one right now and I wouldn't know it.
You don't know it's coming.
Right. Sometimes I know it's coming. Sometimes it just hits me. But I work through it. I take medicine every day for it. So, my life is a journey that I'm not done with yet.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly inspiring, this stuff of, Some people have to come back from, everybody has their own thing, I mean, we talk about these high bottoms and low bottoms and this kind of thing, and obviously this traumatic brain injury, this deal is a deeper journey than some of us are tasked with, and
everyone
and
has a brain
shows
injury in a way.
that there's no, I keep on getting stories that show me that there's like no limitations to how this program can operate in people's lives, because we bounce around and you hear it, that people believe this won't work for them, right?
I always thought this was just cult that my mom was in.
Yeah.
Oh, she's getting drunk and high. I know it.
On the side.
No, it's legit.
Yep. And your story is proof that of another, from a completely different trajectory of what this, what these principles and these steps and what this fellowship can do. Because frankly, a lot of people would say you were too far gone to be coming back, right? And I'm sure that day that little short period of time when you were in the hospital after the actual shooting, I imagine a lot of people assumed that was probably
the last time they would see me.
Yeah. And the fact that you're sitting around being a productive person today and sitting across here and helping other people and
member of society.
Yeah.
I don't take for granted the second chance that my higher power has given me.
Yeah, that's better.
I really don't. God hasn't brought me this far. Dropped me on my head now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was a much better way of what I was trying to say. The distance you have come in a short amount of time is phenomenal, and it is representative of these miracles I speak of. I talk about miracles in my life that are nowhere in the neighborhood of the miracle you have.
We all
experienced. I get it. I don't mean I'm not downplaying mine. I'm just saying that that's
right.
This is a whole different story from I can't even pull something out of my hat. I don't want to put a comparison on it either. That's not what I mean. It just means that that it is. It's just to have been shot in the head. People do not survive that generally. That is not a survivable episode for most folks. And for you to be doing what you're doing today and sitting across the table here telling this story and out helping other people and, showing up and your demeanor and your whole being is different than it was. You could feel the tenseness and the doubting and the way you came in to begin with was a long ways from the energy you're putting out today. Because when you come in today, there's a smile on your face and a glow in your heart that simply can't be missed.
Right.
And and when we saw you show up, that was not there.
And to the new guy, it can always get worse. So don't think this can't happen to you. But if you're coming into this program, it's beautiful. And if you fall, get right back up. Get into the solution. Stick your hand out and someone will grab your hand. I promise you that. I promise.
Awesome. Closing thoughts there. Always out for people a concluder, and you just stabbed it rather than wait for me to do that. So good for that. That's cool. I like it when that happens. Got anything else you want to say?
To my AA family, I love you guys. I really do. Thank you for being there for me since day one. My name is Dillon, and I am an alcoholic. 11119.
Nice, thanks, man. It's an unbelievable story, and they keep on being on here, and people keep showing up, and that's the job I feel that has been tasked with, is to carry this message to people who have these comebacks and survive the what seems to be unsurvivable, and come back to lead a life that as I said before, we say around here that if I had written a script for it, I sold myself short. I think I'll just leave the commercials off the tail end of this one. I do like to close in the same way every time. One of the things I always say is if you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And thank y'all for allowing me to participate in my recovery in this manner today. Peace out.
Always tried to be just who they wanted. Always tried to do everything they said. Only did the things they would approve of. Lock away all your dreams inside your head. Year after year you try to be a good girl. They never failed to point out when you were bad. Stuck to the program like a robot. Became a trophy for mom and dad. But inside you want more. Everything you've been waiting for. Looking for that open door. So every day when you're praying, in your heart just keep saying, let go and fly. Let go and fly. Spread your wings to the sky. Let go and fly. Ever since you was a little boy, they told you, suck it up and be a man. It's time to put